light shall bring victory.
Game 1 is about to begin with a Quest Topsy-Turvy Priest up against Cube Warlock. This is one of the hardest decks to play in Hearthstone on Hafu's end. Combo Priest has so many different ways you can go to victory, but it all has to end with a Stone Toes board usually hitting the face. And then SongBird, aka Korra, is going to be bringing the Cube Warlock. And that deck also has its own nuances, too.
It does. And yeah, I was actually looking at the decks that each player selected for this particular match, and I was curious to see how they chose to open, because it is important to note this is last hero standing. After all of the bans and everything, you still have to figure out, okay, well, you know, what is my best open deck? What are my best counters for what they have left? And you know, I was kind of expecting Korra to lead with the Cube Block, because I do feel like it's her strongest deck against all of Hafu's decks.
Right.
And you know, this matchup for Hafu, I think, is a pretty important one to win.
That's right, and you know, if Hafu was able to practice with Dog prior to this tournament, and Dog saying that Topsy-Turvy Priest in his mind is quite possibly the best deck in the game,
yeah,
then that's probably some real vote of confidence. But it's one thing to be practicing with somebody, but then also have so much on the line, because again, this is a spot for the top 8. However, Hafu's also competed so many years in her life, so I'm sure she's going to be completely calm and ready to take this on.
One of the key things here in this matchup is that inevitability is 100% on the side of the Priest, because Topsy-Turvy Priest, as we see, just fire up the Topsy-Turvy. I like this from Hafu here, choosing to just cycle through. She wants to get that kill. She doesn't want it to perhaps be silenced or anything like that, lose that card draw. She gets the Topsy-Turvy itself back and the powered shield, so she can keep cycling on future minions.
Yeah, it's really important that you utilize your mana, because if you just kind of play really passive against Cube Warlock, they will run over you. You'll get Skull the Minari, pulling out Doom Guards. I mean, even just Mountain Giant. I've seen Mountain Giant solo Topsy-Turvy Priest just because they didn't have any option to answer that 8/8 minion.
It is kind of funny that Twilight's Call ends up sort of nerfing the test subject, because you can't Topsy-Turvy it anymore.
It nerfs it by buffing it.
I know. It was funny when the recent balance changes came around, and I was like, okay, well, what could you change? It's like, well, you could make a test subject a 1/1 or 1/2, and it nerfs right. the deck because you can't Topsy-Turvy it.
It nerfs it so dramatically to the point where I kind of wonder how the deck functions.
Yeah.
Just by you suggesting.
All right, but it will be a Mountain Giant for Korra here, and as you're saying earlier, the onus is on Korra to end the game. She needs to kill Hafu before Hafu is able to assemble her essentially infinite damage combo with the Topsy-Turvy. For those who are not familiar with this deck, the goal is to get the test subject plus Radiant Elementals and keep playing powered shields and Topsy-Turvy on your test subject, eventually make a boar, then keep cycling through, continue to create additional copies with your test subjects and Vivid Nightmare, and eventually just make a gigantic boar with all of these buffs and divine spirits and such cycle through.
Oh, well, this is quite possibly the biggest nightmare available for Hafu, because while Doomsayer is usually good to prevent development, it tends to work really badly against Cube Warlock for several reasons, because of, well, Carnivorous Cube. That card can create 2 Mountain Giants and improve the power on the board. Korra chooses instead to develop the Skull Minari. I mean, you do also really want that Skull to also get online, because you have so many good demons. So these are both really powerful plays available to her.
Yeah, the big thing I think about the Cube play is that you leave yourself open to just getting Mass Hysteria the following turn.
That's true.
And that's one of the major cards that dramatically impacted the power level of this Topsy-Turvy deck from the new set. Topsy-Turvy was kind of a tier 3 or so deck, according to most people prior to this set, but the ability to defend yourself in the mid-game with Mass Hysteria dramatically changes your ability to actually end the game.
It's an excellent point.
You can end the game.
And because of that reason alone, Priest has gained survivability, but more importantly, it shows that Korra is very well aware of how she can potentially throw away her advantage. You need to, every single turn, present that threat, so that way Topsy-Turvy Priest doesn't get that breathing room to simply draw cards. They have to choose to remove threats or be willing to accept the damage / consequences of not having the board.
Hafu can't quite kill this. She does have the Blood Mage Thalnos and the Spirit Lash, but does not have the mana to play it at this point.
Yeah, and at the same time, though, it's still, you know, quote, just a mountain giant.
Yeah.
At 28, it's not game-ending or deterministic at that point. And Void Lord being pulled instead of a Doomguard means that SongBird's aggression, it has to wait at least for one more turn. But man, I'm looking at Carnivorous Cube and Dark Pact and Prince Tal'Daram and the Doomguard hand. There's some huge explosive potential out of this hand.
And that's what Cora needs to do in this matchup, is win explosively, because there's Mass Hysteria and Psychic Scream available to Hafu. So playing the sort of mid-range protect my board style of game is just not going to work as the game goes on. You're going to need the ability to actually just end the game. That is tough to do against the Quest, because you need to, you know, not only set up burst, but set up burst that kills your opponent before they can deploy the Quest, or, you know, through the Quest itself.
Yeah, and I mean, Cube Warlock can do that if they're able to get that train of Doom Guards going. Cora with the spell step. Now it's coming up on Psychic Scream turn. You always have to be cognizant of overextending into that. And, you know, still, again, worth evaluating if you want to tap. Shadow Vision's being burned, inconvenient to Hafu, but, you know, one thing I like about the Spellstone play, too, is that it did fill up the hand and potentially could win Cora the game should Stone Tusk's board be burned. So that was something I wasn't even thinking about initially.
This does complete the quest for Hafu. Gets Amara, and could choose to play Amara, or could just play the Spirit Lash here. Spirit Lash would kill the Giant and gain 6 life.
Yeah, that seems to be a really good course of action. Also evaluate what you need, get deeper into your deck. Second Topsy-Turvy, not nearly as important, still a useful tool.
Now Hafu deciding, does she want to heal herself? Does she want to heal her minion? Does she want to use any of these buffs? She could powered shield it, not really very useful here.
Yeah, but she also will be on 9 or 10 cards as soon as this Thalnos dies.
Yeah, there is the threat. You know, if this Thalnos dies, she could burn her boar.
Yeah.
And if she burns her boar, yeah, she's going to go ahead and just play a Topsy-Turvy here to avoid the possibility of burning a key card.
It's a good move.
That's also a sign to Cora as to the contents, to some degree, of Hafu's hand. That, you know, it means that she doesn't necessarily have the pieces of the puzzle just yet. Because if she did, if she had everything she needed, no reason to worry about burning.
Precisely. Doomguard is out. Are we committing to the aggression?
I mean, there is the possibility to attack for a lot here. The problem being, of course, that your opponent just completed quest and has Amara. So you need to sort of thread the needle of presenting enough pressure, but not investing too many resources. And there's the problem of, well, you know, there's not only the threat of the Amara, but there's the threat of Psychic Scream. There's the threat of Mass Hysteria. There's all these possible things.
Right. Well, Psychic Scream's not nearly as bad because you have 2 possessed lackeys to pull them back out.
And that, I think, is a big part of this. Because, oh man, if it weren't for, damage adds up. But, you know, there is still that Amara. So it does put Hafu in a position where she needs to Amara or potentially Psychic Scream this turn.
Yeah, if she can even get it. You know, she doesn't have it yet. Gonna draw for it. Mass
Hysteria.
One of the better boards against it, though, right now.
It's true. Well, yeah, it's not a great Mass Hysteria. It does find a Psychic Scream, though, so Amara is going to get Hafu back to 40, and then protect it as well a little bit with that Powered Shield. Finds the second Psychic Scream.
Yep, and no demon being pulled. So a moment of relief, at least from that weapon. And now, Cora, how is she going to respond?
I think one of the big things for Cora here is to manage her her demons dying so that Gul'dan is as big a burst threat as possible. Yeah. Because she wants to make sure that these do die rather than get Psychic Screamed in order for them to be in the res pool for the Gul'dan later on. That said, if she just, you know, sort of suicides them in here and trades with the Amara, she doesn't have much pressure. So I could see using the Prince Tal'Daram to copy one of them to try and get another one in the pool of minions that are that have died, and, you know, attacking both these in. Yeah, okay, she's gonna hold on to the Tal'Daram.
Okay.
Just dig with the Cold Librarian.
Yeah, I was thinking about a Mountain Giant coin Tal'Daram play like you mentioned, but Tal'Daram also has so much flexibility with, you know, copying a Carnivorous Cube, for example, or let's say you're in a very late game situation pinch and you want to complicate the board state, you can also copy a Void Lord and put a bunch of walls.
And we see the Psychic Scream Fighter for Hafu. Crucially, we actually saw her briefly hover over the one from Shadow Visions and then play the other one. This is actually something I brought up earlier for Priest decks. It's very key to not give your opponent information if you don't have to. Prince Taldaram's interesting here because it could get Korra a Carnivorous Cube.
You can get or a Void Lord. But we'll first see what ends up happening. Void Lords are still in the decks, got shuffled back.
Well, I was actually oh yeah. I was briefly thinking, do you want to Taldaram? Okay, she's Taldaraming the Void Lord. I'm not sure I like this because, as I was mentioning earlier, the Void Lords aren't things you really necessarily want to have here. Maybe they just get Psychic Screamed anyway. But you really want to have as many dead Doom Guards as possible to get your burst damage in.
This is a lot of removal for days. 2 Mass Hysteria, a Psychic Scream that was discovered and one that was played. There's still one more in the deck. Not to mention that Hafu has her Train of Card Draw, which is so important. Although the test subject that keeps dying and being resurrected is getting in the way of that a little bit.
Well, to be honest, it's not clear that Hafu actually wants to draw all these cards because she could overdraw. If that brought back another card draw minion, so she draws 3 cards here, she overdraws and this is her last Topsy-Turvy.
That's a good point. I didn't consider that. Her hand size is something to always be cognizant of because you don't want to burn Divine Spirit or the Stone Toes Boar if it's your only copy in the deck.
Well, there's a cube, and that would potentially be a powerful thing to use Taldaram on if you did find your final Doom Guard off of the Possessed Lackey.
Man, these plays do not look very aggressive from SongBird. Play the Cobalt Librarian, see if it can pick up Blighter for Gul'dan. Okay.
All right, Umbra is potentially interesting.
Unity, precision, perfection.
Pretty much maximum board presence outside the 6 Swampus.
There is the can we test Hafu's APM? Can we get enough Void Lords?
Right, that's what I was saying.
Right,
it's a really exciting thing when it's like 2 or 3 Void Lords on the board. That's just when you have to be very quick and precise. That's where the nickname APM Breeze to see how fast your actions per minute really comes into play.
I do want to highlight again, Hafu chose to use the actual Psychic Scream rather than one from Shadow Visions.
Oh boy.
There's Doomguard.
That is big. And almost to the point where if I'm SongBird, I don't think I even want to life tap. Oh, she uses the Spirit Singer Umbra here.
Well, she's gonna fire off Valaki. Gets a Void Walker.
I'm not sure about this one, Brian, because I feel like if you're able to guarantee the pull in the Doomguard next turn, you can just Umbra and then Carnivorous Cube.
Well, but that's not enough damage is the thing.
But you put more in the... okay, you're right. It's not enough damage, but I like putting more damage.
Twitch Piper guarantees Boar, I believe. Yep, there's Boar. So does Hafu have all the pieces? She has Radiant, Double Vivid. I believe this is everything, right? Radiant, Double Vivid, Test Subject, Topsy-Turvy, and the Divine Spirit. So... the Radiant Elemental can be copied by the Vivid Nightmare, and so this is going to be nowhere near enough damage for Korra. She actually does need the Void Lords now. She's going to kill her own...
But the thing is, there's also Void Walkers. There's as many Void Walkers as Void Lords.
No, the Void Lord got there, but... Well, this is the APM test right here. The Void Lord in the way.
Oh,
Hafu has everything she needs. The sequence even picked up the second Radiant.
Now she has the overkill opportunity, which Korra can deny. But if she's a good sport, she'll watch it and let it happen.
I mean, you got to watch anyway just to make sure they can do it.
Exactly, but when the final blow gets dealt, she can play the spoiler.
Yeah, for those of you who are curious how this deck actually wins, you're about to see it. The Vivid Nightmares and Topsy-Turvies cycling through on the test subject, which keeps generating more of them.
Yeah.
There is you need to have the appropriate sequence of everything to avoid like overdrawing key pieces or anything like that. But Hafu, she has very few cards in hand. It's unlikely she runs into any trouble.
You just have to be really careful about hand space because Vivid Nightmares can block, and if you lose your last Topsy-Turvy by accident, I have seen that happen. It certainly happened to me.
The thing is, we may see the rope. It may look like she doesn't have enough time here, but the rope, we only see the animations queued. If Hafu could actually have done so many of these things, the way that this plays out on our screen, I've had this happen so many times that I'm like, ooh, they didn't do it in time. And then
Gambler Monka, she still hasn't issued the attacks. Oh no,
she's shaking her
laughing.
head. Oh no!
Oh no, she's out of time.
It's actually roped.
Hafu, did she concede? She conceded.
Oh dear, APM not enough.
Wait, Stone's board doesn't even die.
Well, I mean, we see the hand for Hafu in the select screen instead. So, I mean, this is what we're saying. Those animations queue up, but I don't think that Hafu was able to get everything in time and just decided to concede the game. She couldn't do it. Cora doesn't know it yet. We see her, we see her just holding her breath.
She doesn't know either because the animations haven't finished.
Right? The concede doesn't come in until after everything finishes.
I mean, I assume that's the case, but you know, maybe Hafu already won on her screen, and Cora still doesn't know. Wait, is this because Hafu forgot that there's a Void Lord because she was so focused on her combo that she didn't realize? No, she's trading into the. Oh no, this is terrible.
Well, the thing about this is you have to get like 4 boars that are big enough to get through.
Well, the thing is, you can also flip the board, so you're not supposed to only just attack with the 1/1s. You can summon multiple boars. So you flip the boars, and then you just copy them with one health, and they still have the attacks. And there's the concede.
look at Cora's face. Look at her reaction there, because that was just an issue of, you know, you just didn't get everything in time. And
wow.
I mean, Hafu started. She went right away. She pulled the trigger, kept going through the sequence, but you know, the Void Lord was just in the way. That is, we heard Hafu talking. She's primarily an arena player. She doesn't play that much constructed, and this is a deck that requires you to know the exact efficient sequencing. We see the message from Cora, Void Lord OP. Not the way that people usually have said the Void Lord's overpowered, but did do the job there. And that top D Priest is out of the running for Hafu.
Jeez, that's a yikes from me, dog. I don't know how else to express my my sentiment about what just happened, because that could determine the outcome of the series and put you know, Cora on a course for success, but not necessarily from her doing. I think 2 things happened. One, Hafu was being pretty inefficient with attacking the boards 1/1, but I mean, that is part of the problem with Void Lords, because there's so much board space that you need. The second thing is that I think she may have run out of topsy-turvies because you just have Vivid Nightmares stacking up. So when you destroy your test subject, eventually you're just going to get back, what, 8 Vivid Nightmares, and then you realize you don't have enough damage or enough way to flip it anymore. So this is why people say that this deck is hard, because you can fail at so many junctures, and even if you're at the finish line, you can fumble.
Yeah, it is one of the few decks in Hearthstone that truly requires like precise mechanical play, not just technical play in terms of you make the appropriate decisions, the appropriate turns, but you need to actually be able to do everything quickly. I mean, Hafu's background as a competitive World of Warcraft arena player probably can click pretty fast and pretty accurately, but didn't necessarily have the practice she needed to overcome obstacles in the way of her boars there. And now Cora is in a pretty solid position, because as you mentioned before, this deck is probably her strongest overall against Hafu's lineup.
Reporting for duty.
Yeah, Paladin is a deck that can pressure the Cube Warlock, but Cube Warlock has so many ways to remove the board with Defile, Hellfire, Void Lord to get in the way, and also, Gord Godfrey, the ultimate nuke button onto the board state.
Reporting for duty.
That being said, there are small pockets of window where even Paladin has taken the victory, and Cube Warlock is nowhere near as good at the defensive play as the other Warlocks.
This isn't even Paladin. Her hero power costs 2. This is control OTK.
Oh, you're right. I don't even know why I was thinking about Even Paladin.
We've mostly seen Even Paladin, but she does have a Righteous Protector in play. You can't play that in Even Paladin.
I was just looking down. I'm just reading Twitch chat while I'm playing. I'm just ignoring the game.
I mean, that's what we all do, really. But
I saw like all even costed cards in my hand too. You are correct.
It's literally a Righteous Protector on the board. It costs 1.
Well, Kibler, the next time you make a mistake, I'm going to be gracious about it.
It's just funny to me. It's just I'm not going to harangue too much longer. But anyway,
completely deserved.
Mountain Giant comes down for Cora. That's an even cost card right there. But she is playing Cube Block.
Mind if I roll need?
All right.
I deserve every second of it. I'm not mad. In fact, you should call me out a lot more on that. I need to be on top of my stuff. Something that I think a lot of us could do here. I think Hafu playing the OTK Paladin makes a lot more sense. This is using some new cards from Rastikon's Rumble. Shrivala the Tiger is a really cool, flashy legendary, but the key MVP card in this deck, in my opinion, is Timeout. This is a new card from the expansion that lets you become immune until your next turn.
Right.
And so what ends up happening is players play Uther of the Ebon Blade, summon the 4 Horsemen slowly through their hero powers, and try to very, methodically set up a big one-turn kill, although it takes a very long process to get there.
This is a one-turn kill deck in the sense that it kills you in a single turn, but it takes like 4 turns to get there.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, Timeout is super crucial because previously this deck was very vulnerable to other combo-style decks, because you'd be spending your time sort of setting up and they just kill you. But now you have the ability to use your hero power, Brewmaster or Zola the Horseman, and then Timeout, which prevents your opponent from combo killing you. And that combined with the life gain from Uther, Shrivala, Flash of Light, and the ability to thin out your deck so much with Call to Arms and all of the card draw 2-drops just allows you to very consistently assemble all the pieces that you need and then keep yourself alive with that Timeout.
Blood Reaver Gul'dan, a very powerful card to put into the arsenal here. So if Cora can pull out some of those Doom Guards, potentially can end the game before it gets to that point. But again, how will the card draw and the timeouts play into that dynamic?
Yeah, and this is a matchup where frequently you are looking to defend yourself against a big burst from something like Gul'dan or a Doomguard plus Cube style play. This is a matchup, though, where the Warlock player has a lot more options in terms of the windows where they use their burst damage.
Nice.
That's pretty big here. Yeah. Connecting for a lot of damage. Hafu, she has 2 Consecrations and a Pyromancer, but no equality. This is sort of the story of the Control Paladin life for a long time. She can play, say, Thalnos plus Consecration. That doesn't really get the job done on enough of these.
Yeah, and it's something that's like even calling into question, like, what are you trying to do when you play a Righteous Protector on 1? What's the value in trying to pressure the Cube Warlock that early? Because you're not exactly that kind of combo deck. Or you're not trying to just win through pure aggression, you're trying to stall. So things like the Righteous Protector would be a lot more useful in this position than, say, later. And that's kind of the trade-off that Hafu was willing to make before that Doomsayer put a huge stop to that.
This play is kind of interesting because by attacking the Doomguard here, she does remove the threat of a Cube play on the Doomguard, which could represent lethal right now, Cube plus Dark Pact. However, it leaves up a 3-attack minion, or rather a 4 health minion rather than a 3 health minion, so she doesn't have the ability to Thalnos Consecration to clear the next board. She can Thalnos Pyromancer Consecration to kill the remaining 4 health. Either way, she takes a total of 13 damage from the 2 things attacking, or rather being attacked into and then attacking again.
Man, I mean, that Doomguard is looking pretty appetizing because, Hafu has just shown that she cannot clear a big board very easily. And you also have double Hellfire, but I don't think Cora wants to risk discarding her Hellfires either. And I think she feels so ahead that she can afford that luxury of just taking it easy and pressuring with just this Mountain Giant.
Yeah, well, now Hafu does have to Pyro, Blood Mage, Consecration, and swing with the weapon to not die to double Hellfire.
We have vengeance.
I mean, she's at 7, so she could survive double Hellfire. But
For some reason, I don't think he's a put her 5. Yeah.
if she was a 9-mana, though, that'd be
right.
yeah. So,
well, there is Doomguard. If Doomguard doesn't discard Taldaram, that is lethal.
Oh, you're right. That's the Doomguard Taldaram.
And it does not.
Yeah, that's going to be the 8 damage necessary. Overkill 1. Hafu down 0-2 as Cube Warlock got an inch and is taking a mile.
Yeah, and we saw this really, I think, came down a lot to just the the problems that Hafu had in the first game. She had the ability to actually execute lethal and ended up leaving up SongBird's probably strongest deck in the overall matchup. And in Last Hero Standing, that's crucial because SongBird, unlike in Conquest, can just keep winning with this Cube Warlock deck rather than just getting it over the hump and then being done with.
Yeah, and I gotta, again, wonder what would happen if that Righteous Protector would be kept later, but at the same time, that risk didn't pay off, and we're gonna find out if Hafu can make the comeback or will Korra clean up 3-0 and go to the top 8. Don't go anywhere. More WSOE 2 action right after this.
Welcome back, everybody, to the WSOE 2, the Hearthstone Showdown. We're back at the analyst desk here. I'm TJ, joined by Zalay, and that's admirable. Woo. And first two quick games. We had an insane topsy-turvy priest followed by Q-Lock.
Let me cut you off right there. I'm so excited that topsy-turvy priest game had huge psychological implications for Hafu and for every other competitor in the tournament. What does it mean when even Hafu can't get it done with APM priest? What does it mean for the overkill bounty? The psychological implications. She has 140 words per minute when she's typing. She's extremely quick with the fingers. If she didn't get it done there, what's going to happen?
Well, I took Hafu as the favorite in this match, but if that's going to fumble right there, perhaps she's going for the biggest bounties, trying to secure that right away, and you mess up just a little bit. Void Lord's not an easy minion to attack through when you're going through this iteration. I personally just want to win the game, but in that situation, it fumbles a bit, she ends up losing, and now the whole series is upside down.
Well, Korra is on the verge of a sweep over Hafu to qualify for the top 8, but there's plenty more going on around the rest of the event, so let's go ahead and check in with Lauren.
Thanks so much. So WSOE is so excited to offer an exclusive partnership with Patra. We actually have some t-shirts that we have produced with our WSOE emblem and Patra's dog. That's actually one of her inspirations for what she's doing. So make sure to check those out. It's exclusively on Amazon. So go to Amazon.com, type in WSOE. That t-shirt should come up along with our regular WSOE t-shirt, or in that Twitch chat. All you have to do, we're making it easy for you, ! shirt. So type that in, the link will pop up. All you gotta do, click on it, and you can get your very own exclusive Patra and WSOE partnered t-shirt. It is very cool. I'm excited to get mine. So sending it over there. Frodan, Brian, what you got?
We got game 3 on our hands with Hafu and Odd Warrior. attempting to be best pals at this point. That's the only thing left for Hafu remaining. This is last year's standing best of 5, but there is a pick and ban draft phase beforehand, which, you know, we could always take some time to explore that and maybe even break it down. But the whole point is that you ban 5 classes total and you pick 3 while weaving it in, and then you leave 1 behind. And one thing that's interesting is both Korra and Hafu at the very end of their pick and draft phase had the option of Warrior or Mage, and they both chose Warrior in that position, and I can't disagree. Mage looks kind of weak in this spot, but at the same time, Odd Warrior, Gibbler, is that going to be able to beat even Shaman, Cube Warlock, and the Mirror?
Well, I do think that Odd Warrior has a good shot against even Shaman. You know, other than crazy Hagatha shenanigans, it's usually a deck that's very strong against minion-based strategies. Q-Block can be tougher, especially given the specific build that Hafu is playing. This is not a build that includes Faceless Manipulator, which is one of the most powerful tools against Q-Block out of the Odd Warrior arsenal. So she's playing a Dragon Odd Warrior, which is more focused on board control against typical sort of mid-range and aggressive minions. Frankly, that's already something that Odd Warrior is good at. So it feels like it makes your good matchups better, but it seems like it might make some of your other matchups like this one a bit worse.
Yeah, and the data does show that Cube Warlock is favored against this deck. And with double Mountain Giant, I mean, Korra's had the Mountain Giants so far most of the series, like very early on, be able to pressure. I think that if she hasn't, she's also been able to get Skull, and those are like 2 really important facets for the early game for Cube Warlock. And one more time.
There's all of them. There's Giant Skull.
Look, there's also a bounty for 3-0 sweeps that's out there. And Korra could put herself very close to nailing that if she's able to secure the victory.
Did
so
she
no
throw
mercy.
Her first round?
No, I'm just saying she gets on the board.
It's true.
Yeah, I don't know if she won 3-0.
I don't quite recall whether her first round win was 3-0. But
I'll check that for you.
Here, SongBird Korra is going to pass no life tap. One thing I do like in this instance is that she has held her Librarian rather than throw it into the waiting clutches of that Ethereum Rover. This A, prevents Hafu from just getting a value trade on it and getting some armor, and B, keeps the Librarian in her hand to potentially upgrade a Spellstone later on.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot of armor. But second Mountain Giant, also going to be problematic. You know, one thing that Zole was, you know, talking about a lot was just the psychological damage, too. When you play like a long drawn-out game like Odd Warrior, do you find like that gives you time to calm down in your experience, or is that something that kind of makes you rattle even more because you're just, you know, you just kind of want to get it over with, so to speak?
Well, I mean, I think that it gives you a lot of time to think about your mistakes in life.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
that's one of the problems is that you're in a position where you're like, okay, well, you know, I wish I weren't in this spot. I wish I'd beaten this deck. That's going to be a tough matchup for my Odd Warrior deck. So I do think that the psychology of this is a very big deal. And, you know, crucially, Hafu's version of Odd Warrior, as you're mentioning, has a number of elements that make it weaker in this matchup than a traditional version. It does have, you know, the dragons, which are good, but not necessarily good here. And it doesn't have Face Manipulator. It doesn't have Owl. So this cube means there's 2 more giants coming.
That's right. I mean, you know, personally on my side, I love playing a fast deck right after I lose because then you feel like you can steal the momentum back. But in this case, Odd Warriors games on average are much longer than that of regular Hearthstone decks because of how much life they gain. They try to wait out their opponents. That being said, it's not like SongBird was able to really push out as much aggression. She's even holding onto that second Mountain Giant and prioritizing being annoying as opposed to pressuring Hafu to death.
Yeah, this puts Hafu in kind of an awkward spot, you know, because she has these Reckless Flurries that would get rid of so much armor, but she, you know, certainly doesn't want to use them now, and she has the ability to clear off these the giants out of the cube if she can kill the cube, but that involves losing 30 armor. You know, she has a Smolderthorn Lancer, so there's a lot of just like pincher move here essentially from Korra that puts Hafu in a tough pickle.
You know, Korra's had also opportunities to push out the Skull Minori. You know, what's going on here that, you know, Korra's holding on to this coin, this skull?
I feel like she just had a number of strong opportunities to just, you know, pressure with this board already. And keeping that pressure up and forcing Hafu to deal with it is, I think, a stronger scenario than just getting the skull down and kind of taking a little bit of time off. There actually isn't a way to kill skull in Hafu's deck either. So it's possible that Korra wants to sort of get to a position where she could just maximize the skull ensure that she has the ability to say burst with a Doom Guard right away as soon as she has the skull getting it into play.
Super Collider, a very powerful weapon to force minions to attack into each other, but the way it's positioned is very good. Cora did a great job positioning the minions, and now that acidic Swamp Ooze onto the Super Collider is brutal.
And Taldaram for the cube here means that even if Hafu has one removal for the cube into a board clear, well, you got to kill 2 things into a board clear.
Yeah, I think this is a really good opportunity.
The thing is, she may be thinking, okay, if Hafu does have Reckless Flurry, I want to get to a point where I'm pressuring enough that Reckless Flurry doesn't actually clear my board at all before I commit more to it.
Okay.
Because right now, Hafu could have, and does have, Smolderthorn Lancer, Shield Slam, Reckless Flurry.
Okay.
Which would allow her to clear off the entire board, even if she does Taldaram the cube.
A lesser commitment and a better expenditure of mana is the Possessed Lackey. It can help you pull out, the Void Lord be a little bit more harder to clear and still kind of present that.
Actually, I was going to say I like Skull here because you're in a position where if Hafu does not choose to pull the trigger on Reckless Flurry is never going to be good again because she has so much damage in the board that you essentially have to get rid of this at this point.
Oh, that's true.
You have to kill the cube. You have to Reckless Flurry.
Right.
So now this is like, okay, I'm setting up a guaranteed minion into your essentially forced board clear.
Right. And because Hafu doesn't have as much easy ways to gain armor anymore.
Right.
So if you're eliminating all that armor count, then Reckless Flurry is going to just be like 4 damage, and that's not going to be enough to take out Mountain Giant.
Yeah, and here it's going to be the Smolderthorn Lancer into the Reckless Flurry. And now, thanks to Cora's decision to set this up this way, she's going to be guaranteed a minion off of that skull right away.
That's nice.
Ooh, the cube.
That's going to be really good for the Doom Guard.
It is. Next turn can be Doom Guard, cube, Taldaram.
With no silence in Hafu's deck, this is looking very bad for Hafu.
I will silence their screams. There is a method to my madness.
It's going to be 10 damage on the board just right now. Cube allows 10 more, so 20. With even higher upside because of things like Prince Taldaram and the cube.
Tremble before Taldaram, mortal.
Well,
yeah, I also like this choice of using the 3/3. It's hard. It's easier to remove, therefore, hypothetically.
Crucially, now Hafu can't Hero Power Shield Slam the cube if he had Dark Pacted the other one.
Right.
Hero Power Shield Slam Brawl would be available. Now there is Shield Block. Thanks to the Shield Block in hand, she can Shield Block, Hero Power, Shield Slam,
and
Reckless Flurry. But that is much worse than you just be able to use your Brawl and potentially not actually have to lose all your armor. And if you leave something big left over, because there's still a Possessed Lackey here. I believe that gets a Void Lord.
Is there another Doom Guard too? Because this all came from just one Doom Guard. The 2 Doom Guards that came out of the Prince Taldaram. There's 2 more inside the part of his cube. So you could be still having a lot of damage that comes on the other side.
Yeah, and the truly scary thing is there's just still Gul'dan in SongBird's deck.
One crisis at a time, Brian Killer. Right now, if Hafu doesn't clear that,
can I stay alive? And the answer is yes. You can kill all this stuff. You do leave the 3 Voidwalkers, and yep, there is a Void Lord, so there's still pressure coming.
Coldbite Librarian just to dig a little bit deeper into the deck. And now it's back over to Hafu to again try to deal with the board state, and no longer has crazy amounts of armor and has less removal tools.
I mean, there is a Brawl, but Brawl probably leaves 4 power on the board anyway.
Right.
Because you're, assuming you kill the Void Lord, one of the 1/3s most likely to stick around. Yeah, we're seeing just the inefficiency of the Dragon package here. We see the 2 Crowd Roasters at hand. Those are great if you're playing as a mid-range deck where you're trying to kill some minions, but when there's a board full of small minions or cubed minions, they're much less effective.
Jeez.
Crowd Roaster your 1-drop.
Yeah, that
back in the day when I was a big fan of Rend, that's what it was, Rend Blackhand. Ren Blackhand was usually, you were happy when you killed like an Emperor Thurison or a Ysera or something. You didn't want to, you couldn't Ren Blackhand 1-drops anyway, but Cora is going to Hellfire not only that Crowd Roaster away, but Hellfire Hafu away. And that is going to be a 3-0 sweep from Cora in a matchup where a lot of people felt she was the underdog.
Yeah, and good sportsmanship being showed once again as a hug to show no hard feelings. And, you know, probably immediately talking about game number 1, which I think is fresh in our minds and definitely fresh in her mind. You heard it from herself. Hafu hates losing, and to lose in that fashion, she is going to have a fire under her in the lower bracket.
Yeah.